Hey YouTubes! Today's tech tip is INA cage bearing failures. Whether you're new to Harley or you're a seasoned veteran of working on motorcycles, you need to know that even today, Harley uses cheap bearings called INA bearings. INA is, I think, the manufacturer, the style of it, I don't know. Either way, they're terrible. Here's why. Let me get a flashlight, see if I can show you. If you can see inside the bearing has little needles. These are the rollers are called needles. And then there's these little metal cages that separate the bearings or the needles. These tend to break, especially when you take them apart. As you're putting the tool inside of here and getting behind the bearing, which spreads out to take apart, I have seen in my own personal experience a 50% failure rate of the bearing collapsing while it's being taken out. This happens. The new bearings do not have these little spacers. They're called Torrington bearings, and the cages that don't break on them. As I'm going to demonstrate, you're going to see this is one of the bearings that came out successfully and did not break on me, but I had one that did. And this is what you're going to do once it does. As you can see in front of you, I have quite a few parts sitting on a piece of paper that I want to show you. As I just talked about, I was pulling out one of my INA caged bearings, took it off the tool, and it fell apart in my hands. It's very important when this happens that you don't start freaking out. You need to keep your cool, and you need to count every single piece that you're missing out of this bearing. As you can see, there are little separators right here, right here, right here. This is where these little pieces go, these little cages, right? So you're gonna have to count every piece that's missing. For example, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So I had to go and find 9 of these little cages. Even the little broken pieces, you're gonna have to find them. I had 2 that broke in half. These are very brittle, but they are extremely hard. If that makes sense. It can be both. If any of these get in your motor, it will destroy your motor. It can get in between the rings of the pistons. It can go into the cam chest, and it's just going to cause massive havoc. Now, to find all of your bearings or needles that you're missing, you're going to count the spaces in between these slots. For example, I don't have any spaces in between this slot. But I do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Which means I've lost, out of this bearing, a total of 9 separator cages and 9 needles, which I have in front of me. If you cannot find any of these, which in my case, I found all 9 needles, but I only found 7.5 separators. You're going to have to look around on the floor, on the table, on your workbench, in the cam chest to find these. If you cannot find them, I'm going to show you how to fish them out of your crankcase area. Once this happens and your cylinders are still all put together, your heads are all put together, and you are just going to do adjustable push rods, and you're missing a piece of this bearing, get yourself a flexible head magnet, just like this, a telescoping magnet. You can get them up at AutoZone or O'Reilly's or whatever you have around you. Get in here, start fishing around. If you don't see it, get up in there, get inside where the bearings are at. All the little cavities that it could have fallen out as you're pulling this tool apart. If you still can't find it and it's not on the floor, you're going to have to pull your cylinders and your heads off. There's not a way around this, guys. Again, once everything is off, you have your pistons off, the heads, the cylinders, use your flexible magnet, and you're going to have to get up in here and fish around until you find the piece. In my case, I was missing pieces, and I was able to locate them with this magnet, and they were laying in the cavity of the lower end. If you can't find it with that magnet, what you can also do as a last resort is on the bottom of your motorcycle, I'll get a light on it. There's a drain plug, and it's called a crankcase plug. I think is what's in the Harley manual. You can remove this, and all of the oil will drain out from the crankcase. Then what you do is you put it back in, get you some diesel fuel, which has oil mixtures in it, and pour it all inside here, and then swash it around with your bike. Move your bike around, and what this does is if there's any metal particles that are attached to the crank or in the corner of the cavity, it's going to loosen that up. It's going to push it all down to the very bottom, and then you're going to drain that plug again, and it will release it into a pan. Then you take your magnet and find if you've missed anything. I've had to do that before in the past too, and it works really well. Regardless how long you've been working with motorcycles, whether it's been 20 years or you're just now beginning to work with the motors, as you take off these INA bearings, this is going to happen to you at least once in your lifetime. So I hope this video, even though it's short, is helpful to somebody to show that it does happen. It just happened to me, and the steps that you take to make sure you have 100% of all parts accounted for, and how to fish through the lower end and maybe even dump some diesel in there and get those pieces out. So as always, do what you do, make those videos so I have something to watch on my couch. Deuces.